The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in the last election, Atiku Abubakar, has vehemently rejected the verdict of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, which held that the petitions by the candidates and their parties lacked merit, thus upholding the election of Tinubu. In a press conference held in Abuja yesterday, Atiku rejected the verdict, saying the battle to upturn Tinubu's victory continues. The former vice president, who called himself a fighter, said he had instructed his legal team to file an appeal at the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Osita Okechukwu, a foundation member of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC and the Director General of the Voice of Nigeria, says he fully understands the grief of the opposition parties over the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court. He said that although the main opposition, PDP, had bright chances of bouncing back through the 2023 presidential election, the political greed of the party's candidate, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, denied the party victory. He further stated that Atiku's failure to rise to the golden opportunity and play as a statesman by showing support for his erstwhile running mate, Peter Obi, or any other southern presidential candidate divided the opposition party. Joining us now is Osita Okechukwu, a foundation member of the ruling All Progressives Congress and the Director General of the Voice of Nigeria, VON. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Sister Ayo. Good morning, Dr. Ruby. Good morning, Incisive, Rufai, and good morning, Nigerians.
My Oga, good morning, sir.
Well, good morning, Mr. Okechukwu. Well, Ayo was just quoting you as saying that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is greedy. And, what is greedy? It's somebody trying to be president of Nigeria and then also saying he respects the courts, but that the matter of the presidential election petition, he and his party will go all the way to the Supreme Court. And, you are saying he's greedy. You will confirm if you really said so. Then the vice president is saying he will retire him to Fumbina, where he can go and be rearing goats and broilers and layers and all that. Look, I thought this matter is far more important than characterization of principal actors in the drama, rather than, focusing on the substantive issue of the judiciary playing its part, other parties playing their part. Where do you stand in the matter?
Let me start by congratulating President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, congratulating Nigeria and our democracy, commending His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, commending His Excellency Peter Obi for applying the democratic route and their supporters nationwide for remaining calm and following the democratic route of the process of from one tribunal to the other. We passed through that under Muhammadu Buhari. In 2003, we lost. We went to court and stayed for almost 18 months. In 2007, we lost. We did same. 2011, we lost. We did same. So we're happy they are following the democratic lane because it's the safer lane in a sub-region that has toxic anti-democratic forces. So I thank them immensely. On His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, without being immodest, I have great respect for him. And I slept over it. I said, what kind of a first error must have made His Excellency to lose the golden opportunity of becoming a real statesman in Nigeria? You belong to a political party that had embedded in its constitution the rotation convention. And you were there in 1999 or even before. What took off far back before then? When the late Dr. Shola Saraki was to win the defunct APP in Kaduna, and His Excellency Obondion later emerged. But they were persuaded that the power should rotate so that we can have peace, so that our democracy could be enduring, so that there will be equity, peace and justice. In that context, it became a southern contest between Olufalaye and Obasanjo. And luckily, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar was a beneficiary of that experiment, because there were prominent northerners, more prominent than him then, Umaru Shinkafi, Adamu Chiroma, Abubakar Rimi. They all said for the peace, unity of their country, and for the growth of democracy, they jettisoned their personal interest. The same His Excellency Atiku Abubakar in 2014 bolted out of PDP presidential convention when Jonathan emerged that it is the turn of the North. And we all applauded him. We said, yes, it's the turn of the North. He came to us in APC, lost, and went back to PDP. And in 2018 presidential primaries, graciously, Governor Wike, the then governor of Rivers State, hosted the PDP. And all these southern aspirants withdrew and left the arena for only northerners, on the interest of the fact that we are brothers. That, especially for some of us who are Zikists, that if we don't have the alliance, understanding between the North and the South, we will be joking. None of them participated. Even Wike himself was qualified then to bid for the presidential candidature of the PDP. But all of them, in the interest of our common equity, peace and justice, did not run. His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, you emerged. That you didn't win in the 2019 presidential election does not for a statesman mean you must run when it was the turn of the South. And luckily, the APC governors of the North, in their own wisdom, following the same rotation of zoning convention, wrote a public letter to the then President Buhari on June 4th, stating that we are qualified to run, but we place our dear country, our citizenry, ahead of our personal ambition. We are not running. And President Buhari called them to a meeting, and they said, Mr. President, none of us is running, and that we are giving the chance to the South so that our brothers will keep faith for next time. Because, and that was in a paradox.
All right.
How should His Excellency Atiku Abubakar breach his own party's constitution, breach the zoning convention? I said the unforced error might be out of greed, because when I was watching the television in those days, I saw my big brother, His Excellency Okwesiloze, propounding an argument that the election is going to be like that of 1979, when it was between two Southerners, iconic Chief Obafemi Awolowo and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe versus Shagari. That Shagari triumphed. Few days later, our own colleague, the celebrated Dele Momodu, was on the same track. I said, why are these people so naive? Do they think the northern electorate, one of the most sophisticated electorates in the country, that they are in a dormitory? You just open the door and file them to vote for Atiku.
All right, Mr. Okechukwu.
And in an encounter in Kaduna, the same His Excellency broke out of his original pan-Nigerian perspective and resorted to paranoid nationalism when he told the Northerners, vote for me because I'm your own. I couldn't sleep that night because I know His Excellency very well. He was very close to one of my big uncles, Dube Moya, who was then the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He was also very close to one of my mentors, Right Honorable Chubo Kadibo, of blessed memory. I was surprised. I said, from my own calculation, if it is not, why the unforced error? Why should he damage the PDP? That day I concluded that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to emerge because a divided house cannot stand.
All right. Thanks for stating your position on what you believe might be the reason for the outcome of the PDP at the just concluded, at the last elections. But something the PDP or Alhaji Atiku Abubakar might disagree with you on is part of their petition is that the reason or one of the reasons why they lost was as a result of how badly conducted the elections were, especially by INEC. In fact, in your submission and your response to the judgment given by the Court of Appeal, that's the PPC, you had mentioned that going forward, we should have another look at the Electoral Act, especially mandating the electronic accreditation and transmission of results. So even in your estimation, you faulted the process by which or how INEC handled the last election. That's part of what Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is saying is responsible for his loss at the polls, not his greed. What do you have to say about that?
Thank you very much. When the PDP started caucusing, I even quarreled with my good friend, His Excellency Bala Mohammed, who actually, as the then Minister of FCT, allocated the plot of land where I'm living today to me freely. I said, Your Excellency, why don't you people obey the convention? Sister Ayo, there's the law in the public domain and there's the convention. I don't want to talk about the law deeply because they are going to the Supreme Court. I was happy when they are still plying the democratic rule, saying they will get to the last court. But what I'm saying is that when you hear people shouting about internal democracy on the political parties, it's part of the process of the election. You cannot, because of your muzzle, just imagine what could have happened. Will anybody start saying that they could not gather enough agents, they could not gather enough papers, if His Excellency Atiku has supported Peter Obi, or any Southerner for that matter? It could have been what we were expecting, because I'm concerned about the growth of democracy in our dear country. And the growth of democracy has shown that in advanced countries of the democracies of the world, you mature to a multi-party system where there are two dominant political parties. So the people's idea will be rotating about the message, the ideology, the principles of those two major political parties. Yes, the flaws of not having enough agents, not picking the papers, before even you talk about the transmission of the result, was basically, if a PDP had, I was afraid prior to the election, until when the PDP mismanaged, breached the constitution of their own party, breached the zoning convention. I know that the storm will catch on them. It happened to us in 2003. Buhari had extensive votes, 12 million votes in the north. But the Southerners said no. And some Northerners who did not vote for us, they said no, it's not your turn. Who lost? So I'm talking of the storm. If you are trying to breach the storm, there will be consequences. One of those consequences is the incapacity of the PDP to be in a position to rally around a cohesive plan where they could have over 1,706,000 agents on the lineup. It could have been the tribunal who will be telling them, we can't accommodate all of them, please. Let's file in the papers. And INEC could have been handicapped. But as you said, I'm saying going forward, President Tinubu and my great party and other political parties who must come back to look into the tiny elements to make electronic transmission of result mandatory. The other day, I was passing through to buy groundnuts, boiled groundnuts. And the lady told me that, please, let me finish my call. That's a roadside trader. And I looked at this one, it was a smartphone. Go to any village in the country, you find people with smartphone with the list of phones. So let's go electronic all through so that we can conclude cases before swearing in.
Okay.
I believe it will be done.
Okay.
I believe Asiwaju will be disposed to the amendment of the Constitution further.
Okay.
A lot of people did not believe Buhari would do so. He did so. So we can also do so again.
Okay. But the only difference is that a lot of people did not believe Buhari would do so. He only did so when it suited him. Because he didn't do so when he was supposed to do so when he had an election in 2019. You remember how he delayed and he looked for all sorts of clauses. It was after he was leaving that he decided to do so. So let's put history in perspective. God bless you, sir. Real quickly, let's come to it. I would like to know your honest assessment of INEC. Because one that you are saying that we should have used or deepened our laws for electronic purposes, there are copious facts that INEC said technology was going to lead the way on all the electoral process. It was a couple of days to the elections, or when the technical glitch happened, that we heard otherwise. Leading up to the election, there are empirical facts that the INEC chairman said technology, BVAS, is going to lead the way. It was said in Chatham House. It was said in many conversations. There's a video making the rounds of Festus Okoye saying it. He came here to say it many, many times. And in fact, let me use your word. The rigging vaccine. Because you two touted that fact. So how is it that all of a sudden, your so-called rigging vaccine that you said President Muhammad give us as Buhari give us a legacy, the court is now saying that it's not mandatory to use this rigging. So where was the rigging vaccine in the first place? So your own assessment of INEC, what would you say about this election, sir?
Rufai, can I be honest with you?
Yes, sir.
There's a saying in my village that the lady that started cooking for a long time, the woman that started cooking for a long time, has more pieces of porcelains. His Excellency Atiku Abubakar and His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they took off from the political family of, we call the PF. In the 80s, when we started, I was in Liberal Convention. There was also the bigger association called the PSP. For God's sake, whether you like it or not, Tinubu could have won. Immediately the PDP house was divided. Whatever that caused the glitch, I do not know. But all I know is that no matter how you pack the pieces, like when prior to the primaries, don't forget I was one of those, I wrote a public statement appealing to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to run, that is the son of the Southeast. And the next day they told me that the kingmaker want to be king. And I met one of the governors of my good friend of the North. I said, Your Excellency, why are people not supporting us in the Southeast? He said, it's the PDP that should compensate you people because at each turn you voted for the PDP. And you say you're Zikists. We have our own alliance. Tinubu has started collecting pieces of the porcelain. That governor told me that while he was running to for the governorship, I don't want to mention the amount, he drove to Bodilon Street. He couldn't see Asiwaju the first day. The second day he met him, he said, Sir, I'm running for governorship of so state. He said, is Buhari supporting you? He said yes. There and then he called President Buhari and said, are you supporting this governor? He said yes. He said, okay, give me an account number. He said a few days later, the bank called him and said, Alhaji, we don't know, sometimes there are mistakes in our banking process. The money that arrived in your account had never been there before. Is there any money you're expecting? He even forgot. He told him, please, give me 2 days. He started scratching his head until it occurred to him that he should call Ashwaju. He said, Ashwaju, please, was there anything you said to me? He said yes, that there's a young man, he will call you. He's the one. Why you go ahead with the campaign, keep in touch with him. These were the foundations he laid. And His Excellency Atiku Abubakar was also aware. There's no way he couldn't have won. The issue of the glitches, as you said, we must sustain it. Because there was a time, one public officer said that the poor doesn't need telephone. But today we have seen how useful the telephone is to the poor. I agree with you, I did a small book on that the beavers is a vote rigging machine, and we must sustain it. Vaccine. I don't know what happened, but he could have won, because a divided house is a divided house.
No, so what's your assessment of INEC on all of this? Promises here and there, promises not fulfilled. That's what I'm asking. So what's your assessment? Because you were part of those that came to tout and celebrate this vote rigging vaccine. But today, Nigerians are disgruntled. They said, your vaccine did not work. It didn't kill the COVID of election rigging. Your vaccine did not work. Elections and results were massively disputed countrywide. That's why we are where we are today.
It is not very appropriate to throw away the baby and the bathwater. And I don't believe in the fallacy of generalization. If you know what happened in states where incumbent governors lost senatorial bid, what is the matter? The matter is the same beavers. If you go through the processes, now this senator had lost in the court, this House of Rep man had lost. It's the same machine, the rigging machine that provided. If nobody had told you that INEC did not acquit itself in the national or state assemblies elections. Did anybody say so? So don't throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Mr. Okechukwu.
What I'm saying is that democracy is not a revolution, it's evolutionary. We're advancing, we're increasing by the day. From the ways reports that late Omar Musa Yar'Adua convoked, have we not been benefiting by the day?
Mr.
I'm not
Okechukwu.
saying there are no flaws on the part of INEC. I wouldn't say so.
Mr. Okechukwu, we need to go, but very quickly.
Yeah, Doctor.
Yeah, you are Director General, Voice of
Thank
Nigeria. We enjoy having you on the morning show, again and again. But don't you see a contradiction in your role? Voice of Nigeria is supposed to represent the whole of Nigeria. But you are more of a voice of the APC. That's likely to be confusing for some people. And I've taken time out to go and check the website of Voice of Nigeria. It's all about Tinubu, 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 Tinubu. Voice of Nigeria under your watch should not be about Tinubu. It should be about selling Nigeria to the world. Don't you see a contradiction here? Briefly, because we're running out of time. We have just about a minute to go.
Please go back to the website of Voice of Nigeria, www.von.gov.ng. If you go back there, you will see that we try to reflect the good works going on in Nigeria. We are the reference point today. Those who read social media abroad, they refer back to us. I will give you our feedback when we meet next. Or when you are back in Abuja, I'll take you to our studio and you see our feedback. We are the reference point. What I'm doing as an elder statesman, I've been in this politics for 45 years, starting with PRP in 1978. I'm trying to throw light. Those who want to overcry on why the PDP lost, that they should know where to pinpoint where the material condition that led to a divided house. The obedience could have been the PDP. All that Obi won were PDP stronghold. In those who, like us, who believe in rotation, that after 8 years in the north, you should go south. After 8 years in the south, you should go north. For brotherhood, amity, fraternity, equity, and justice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Osita Okechukwu, Director General of the Voice of Nigeria, for joining us on the Morning Show.